Hello, relatives. I want to say, um, Hihana Washte Matakiapi. Good morning. My name is Michael. I'm coming at you from South Dakota, USA. I apologize for the hazy video. I think the light has a lot to do with it. It's uh, it's a little bit after 6 a.m. in the morning here in the Midwest, USA. I'm going to go ahead and do a reading from this book, The Elders Meditation with the Native or the Meditation with Native American Elders book. And that's it. Nothing fancy. A good way to get the day started. A good way to think from a spiritual perspective, to live your life through a spiritual perspective, get your day started, and to think about throughout the day. So, I've been doing these readings while I get my sage ready. I'm getting ready to do a smudging ceremony. But while I get that ready, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know that I've been doing this on another media outlet for about 5 years, and it's only lately, I think this is my third or fourth video that I've been doing this on YouTube. So it's new. So I'm still getting used to it. I feel a little awkward. I kind of want to go back to my old media outlet. I was doing some podcasts, but you know what? I like YouTube better. I want to check it out. It's more mainstream. I want to, hopefully find a bigger audience, a more vast audience, reach more people with these type of spiritual readings. I'm also going to issue this disclaimer. I have not a professional. This is not a counseling session. This is none of that. I'm just a regular guy, a regular dude sitting on his couch, getting ready to do this reading. I have no idea what it's going to say. I have no idea how I'm going to react to it, what I'm going to feel about it. I may even disagree with the reading, but I'm not going to edit none of this. I don't edit none of it. It's raw. This is uncut. So I'm not going to do none of that. Maybe I should, but I'm just not going to do that. I'm not techie. I'm not techie, guys. And you know what? I don't want to be. I want to I want to keep much of my life as old school as possible, but certainly these readings are old school, and I'm able to share them with you out of that literature. And so I want to go ahead and get started with that. I want to offer up that cleansing smoke to you, to your families, to your relatives, wherever you're at. And I also want to say this is really important, okay? It says meditation with the Native American elders, but no matter where you come from, you don't have to be Native to have something impact your spirit, to have something speak to you in a heart, in a way from the heart. So I want to issue that. I also want to let you know this. I need to maybe write this down. I'm trying these new earbuds out, so I'm going to do the best I can. Is that I'm really open about this, okay? Um, I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I'm in recovery. I've been sober for quite a long time, so I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of being in recovery. So you're gonna probably hear me say that. I don't want you to feel excluded. I want you to feel included. No matter where you're at, if you've never had a problem with alcohol and drugs, these are the type of readings that pierce right through those divisions that create division, create distance. These are meant to bring us together. But I want to let you know that the reason why I say that is because I post these videos to this Facebook page that I administrate, that I created, that's called Relatives in Recovery. So relatives, no matter what skin color you are, no matter what background you are, you're a relative. Mitakuye Oyasi. We are all related. So I just want to let you know about that. There's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise, relatives. So enough of my disclaimers and enough of my whatever you want to call them. So today's reading is this out of this book. And then I'm just gonna share, okay? Nothing fancy, keeping it simple, keeping it raw. September 16th. To me, the wisdom the elders have to manifest is in teaching people how to live in harmony and balance with each other and the earth. You cannot give away what you don't have. You need to give away what you have in order to keep it. Our elders have lived their lives with a lot of trial and error. They have experienced how to do things good, and they have experienced what didn't work for them as they grew old. They know things about living that we don't know. So, through the years, the elders have gained wisdom. They usually have a whole different point of view because of all their experiences. There are two ways to learn. Someone tells us what they did and we do the same thing, or someone tells us what they did and we choose not to do it. Both of these paths will help us to live. And then there's a brief prayer at the bottom. My Creator, teach me about choices and decisions and consequences. Put an elder in my life to guide me. And so um, that's a pretty powerful reading, because it talks about wisdom and it talks about life experiences and it talks about having a relationship with elders, someone that has been through a lot and has learned from their lived experiences, and being able to go to them, being able to ask, being able to visit. Um, Reaching out, getting to know somebody, getting to know, man, you know what? This is a big world. There's a lot of us out here. And a lot of our grandmas and grandpas, I think, aren't being looked to as we go about our busy days, and we go about, raising our children, paying the bills, our careers, our jobs, and then, we need rest, and then we have to take care of ourselves in many respects. And I don't know about you, I can only speak for myself, relatives, is that when there's an elder around, it, the environment changes. It's just like if there's a bunch of children around, that creates an environment of, children be around, the energy that they bring. They bring a lot of good things, and I think they really bring along, and whether they know it or not, is a very fundamental wisdom that isn't necessarily of living life, but comes from a wisdom of innocence. And I mean, I won't go into that. I want to stick to the reading, and I hope you can hear me, relatives, because these are new earbuds and they're starting to sort of, I'm starting to wonder whether they're working or not. But, if there was a grandma sitting in this room right now, the energy and the vibe would be different as if she wasn't sitting in the room. And myself, if she was sitting in the room, I would conduct myself much differently, because I would want her to know, and I would know that she has things because of her lived experience, or a grandpa. Um, you just feel, I mean, to me, when there's a grandma or grandpa in the room, for the most part, um, I feel really accepted. I feel like there's, like a grandson, whether they say it or not. But, when I suppose probably, from my perspective, I mean, I'm 51 years old, and there are things that I have learned just within the last year, let alone a lifetime. And so myself, I just feel like myself, you know, I was kind of, when I sobered up, when I went into recovery, and that was almost 28 years ago. February 15th, 1995 is my sobriety date, relatives. And I'm very thankful to just be alive here today, let alone doing the best I can to have an honest conversation and a deep reflection time before I start my busy day. Um, so when I sobered up, I had been working a graveyard shift. I started a graveyard shift. I ended up working that same graveyard shift job for 14 years. And so I was a youngster. I mean, I was young. I was 24 years old when I entered into recovery. And I wanted to be around other people I felt the energy of the people that were around my age. I was I was just sobering up. I was just discovering life from the viewpoint, from the perspective of sobriety, from a whole new way of life. And that felt wonderful, and everything was new. And I took this graveyard shift job, and so I knew that I needed to hit my meetings. I knew that I needed to continue to go to build this support network, to be a part of this recovery, because I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go back to that old way of life. I knew that I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back and start experiencing the consequences of living my life based upon what the direction that I had already been. Criminal lifestyle, addiction. I mean, basically, when it comes to, be always trying to be the tough guy, always trying to find the easy way out. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I did that. So I'm not trying to come down on myself, but this is just a on the spot conversation relative. So I'm doing my best. But what I'm trying to say is I didn't want to go back to the way that it was. I was miserable all my life. Long before I ever picked up the drug and drinking, I was absolutely miserable. And for the most part was unaware that I was that happy, because basically I would draw closer to those people that were just like me, that grew up with troubled childhoods, troubled relationships, homes, abusive homes. And we did our best. We did our best. We were like the forgotten children that fell through the cracks. And myself, what happened was this whole sober way of life was absolutely new to me. This honesty way of life was absolutely new to me. And so I took this graveyard shift job, and in order for me to maintain my recovery, maintain my sobriety, first of all, I had to go to meetings. I was court ordered to go to meetings, but I wanted to go to meetings. That was the difference. Is this time I wanted to build these support networks. I wanted something different. I was a young father. My daughter was around 4 years old. I wanted to be in her life. I wanted to stay in her life. I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted change, and I wanted it more than anything that I had ever wanted in my entire life. It was something different, man. And I'll tell you what, relatives, um, because I worked that graveyard shift job, I would have to go to meetings during the morning when I got off work. I got off work at 7 a.m. And at that time, most everybody's working, right? And guess who are the ones who aren't working? It's the retired ones. It's the older ones that have been around for a long time. They've seen it. They've done it. They've been through everything in life pretty much. They've been through heartbreak. They've been through losing their families. They've been through, um, terminal illness and survived, and they lost loved ones. I mean, they've lost jobs, they've lost careers, and they were on the comeback. So they've been through the roller coaster of life. And when I was younger, I used to never pay attention to older people. I mean, for the most part, I just didn't go around them, and I had these prejudgments about them. They're old, they're grouchy. Basically, I was listening to what everybody else says. Now that I'm older, I know why they're like that, because they're always in pain. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, my back is killing me. So that affects, but what I really learned was there was a whole nother side to them. And one, I had never felt like I had been accepted. That was me. I'm not saying nobody accepted me, relatives, but I had never felt like that I had been accepted as part of a group. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. And when I started going to these meetings, and there was nothing but all these people that I had all these years of sobriety, and I was intimidated. I was like, man, how can I stay sober that long? That has to be impossible. You know what I mean? So to me, um, so I went in there with that frame of mind, basically, like what I talked about. I mean, I was open minded as best that I could. You know what I mean? I was doing the best that I could. And so what I started to do was I started to mainly go to those morning meetings, and because of that graveyard shift, then I would go home. I would, have to, I was living a backwards life. I was up all night and I would sleep during the day, but I had to make these meetings. You know what I mean? One thing was that these elders, these old timers, is what they call them. Um, they just something about them, man. They were always smiling. They were always um they were close to one another. They were always like sharing with each other and asking each other about their day, and then sitting around and talking like they were genuinely interested in each other's life. And not just that, they would talk and they would share. I was watching them, and I was watching them interact, and I realized, man, that's I in order for me to, because I hadn't been around anything like all that in my life, for the most part, what I had been around was this bravado all my life. Is when you interact, you're all about how tough you are. You're all about just this hyper masculine behavior. And so I wanted to fit in, right? So that's what I would do. Whatever I saw on TV or whatever it was, the group, I was like a chameleon. I could fit in, no matter what. I could do the best that I can to fit in, but I never felt like I fit in. And so, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that it was these elders, these old timers, that had been around for a long time. And now I realize, looking back, is that they had a better idea of what to stress over and what was a part of life, and what not to stress over. And they really valued interaction, like genuine interaction in each other's life. And they seemed to be less judgmental relatives. I think they just understood that being judgmental towards each other was like a waste of their energy. I have a feeling they had been down that road, the same sort of roads that I had been down, and they sort of realized and put away what they felt like was sort of like they could only have so much energy, so much time within a 24-hour day, so much time, minute by minute. Every seemed like every minute was of value to them. And I don't really remember them really saying that, but it sure seemed like that. Like for me, for the first time in my life, I started to have different values. I started to see that getting to know one another and feeling welcome was something that could shift my life, that that could change me. And you know what? I really didn't have to do nothing. I just continued to show up. I was really quiet back then, relatives. I'm telling you, it's like night and day. But I was really quiet, and so I had always been quiet. I'd always been a fly on the wall. I'd always been sort of invisible because I grew up in a very violent world, relatives. I'm not going to go into it, but I grew up all my life around violence, around drugging, around drinking, drug dealing. Um, um, so that's basically where I came from. So this whole new world where that wasn't there, it was I knew that I didn't want any part of that. But what I didn't know was what the next part of my life was going to look like without that. And so as much as that felt good, um, I was finding out what life was like without violence, without this hyper masculine sort of outlook, and thinking that I needed to behave according to other people's standards. And so what I started to do was I started to look for different values, different standards of living. I mean, you could read about it in books, and that's cool, and apply that into your life. I had started to do things like that. I started to focus. Up until that point, you couldn't get me to open up a book unless I was in jail. You know what I mean? So I really started to look for influences, look for different things that were going to help me. to stay sober, to stay, not just stay sober, but to learn about what it is like to live in a world, and to help me, because I was always being tempted to go back to the old life. That was real easy for me to do, was to go back to the old life of drinking, drugging, criminal lifestyle, violence. I mean, for the most part, that was the major thing that I had grown around. And so when I got around these elders and these old timers, it was a whole different experience. I mean, none of them, absolutely none of them, tried to force me into like believing the way that they believed. I think, for the most part, they must have had a sense that I was, like very cautious, that I was um, quiet for a reason. And so I was, for the most part, I was scared to talk, but get me drinking, get me talking about, fighting and violence and all this, that, and bragging about things, bragging about going to jail, um, stuff like that. And, I could probably fit in there. But when it came to this new way of life and facing the consequences and facing the reality, looking myself in the mirror honestly and asking myself, what do I want, for the first time in my life, asking myself with this urgency, with this deep connection, almost like a grieving, coming to a point where this is what my life has looked like from this point on. I cannot deny it no more. I know drinking and drugging and criminal lifestyle has everything to do with that, but there's something deeper into life than, and I'm going there. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of acting like it doesn't exist. I'm tired of being scared of it. I'm tired of viewing it as if it doesn't exist. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to live. And so and I was just overcome with so many emotions, so many feelings, that, for the first year of my sobriety, my pillow was always wet at night, because I was going through this time of great healing, and I was shedding all these tears. My body was cleansing itself. My body was purifying itself of all of this toxicity that I had grown, like, that had become normal in my life. And so my body was even going through this healing time. And so what it was trying to do was, it was trying to empty itself out. My body, my heart, my mind was trying to empty itself out. And in our Native American indigenous way, we invite all of creation, the four directions, six directions, all of creation into that experience, into our lives, because the relatives in the west direction are considered elders, right? The relatives from above are considered elders. They have been here. They will always be. We invite them into our lives. And so I had never done that before. And I had, you know what? I started to even pray. And when I started to pray, my body knew that I was doing things that I had never done before. And it was almost like my body had been waiting for me to do that. I mean, up until that point, I was constantly walking around stressed out, ready to fight, ready to go at a distance, waiting for the next moment, like always in a constant state of stress. And I started to ask for help to be able to deal with that, to be able to manage my life, manage my emotions, manage what this almost overwhelming wave of of truth, of reality, um, brought. And that's the reason why I drink, is to hold that back. But I couldn't do it, and that's why I just kept on digging a hole deeper and deeper, and felt like everything, because in reality it was getting worse. And when you're at that point in your life, in your self medicating, and to hold back those demons, to hold back those tidal waves, and first of all, I started to try and put different words to it, because I really thought that the world was like a haunted house. You know what I mean? I really thought that the world was something that I didn't want to do. But in my heart, I knew that I wanted to live in a good way. I knew I wanted to live. And I'll tell you what, those elders at that time in those meetings were teaching me the value of a simple cup of coffee, the value of one day, the value of the day, the value of being able to be present, to be in the meeting, to be able to have that opportunity to not only get to know myself, but to get to know other people, because it was through other people I was getting to know myself. And so I felt like my heart was getting bigger and bigger. That's what it felt like. It's really interesting to talk about it. But you know what? Another surprising thing that I found out about being around them was that they knew how to have fun. They knew how to have fun. For myself, growing up, having fun was meant a lot of things, but we used to do things that were very self-destructive for fun. We used to do things like, that are considered criminal just for fun. I grew up doing criminal long before I ever drinking and drugging. We used to steal. We used to, oh my God, that is just the bare minimum, relatives. I'm not going to go into that. So my idea of fun was completely self destructive. And these alders, they knew how to have fun just having a cup of coffee and having lunch and just talking with each other. These relatives knew how to have fun. Up until that point, I just thought, oh, these they don't know how to have fun. These grouchy, blah blah blah. All these preconceived ideas that I thought I knew were absolutely wrong, relatives. So I really started to pay attention to them because they seemed like they had less worries. That's what I don't think that they had less worries. I think that they knew what not to worry about so much, and that they had different worries than I do. They were, because they knew, like health was like the number one reason to feel grateful for. Health in people, families was the number one. Up until that point, I was more worried about drinking, drugging, and continuing this pretend world of what does my life look like. I got to fit in, and these elders um were more about, I think they had just basically learned through their own trial and error, just like they mentioned. And so myself, I credit all these elders, and I can name off lists. And you know what? A majority of these elders, relatives, when I first came in and I first sobered up, they have since passed on to the spirit world. I'm not kidding you. I can name off. There's this little Irish woman. I can't remember her name. She's been gone for, um, gosh, probably at least 10 years. I'm sorry I can't remember her name. Is the reason why is because I moved, and that's really sort of changed a lot of things. But she was Irish, and she was just, I'm not kidding, she was like 4'9" or something like that. She was just tiny. And you had even had an Irish accent. She had actually um came over from the country of Ireland and had been in the USA for a long time. And I would loved it when she spoke, because she spoke, and she was when she was back then, she was probably around 65, and when she died, she was probably about 80. I remember seeing her in the hospital before she died, and she would always say something like, "Oh, Michael, it's so good to see you." And I would have to lean down to give her a hug, and she always kissed me on the forehead. I would have to lean way down, and she always kissed me on the forehead. And I will never forget. I still remembered what she smelled like. But you know what? I had never had that experience before. Um, those elders welcomed me like nobody else could welcome me. They treated me like I was like family. Um, so they meant a lot to me. I think they saved my life, to be honest with you, relatives, Because if I would have had it my way, if I would have had it the way that I thought, I would have went to other meetings where there was younger people. You know what I mean? They said nothing happens by mistake. There are no coincidences. And so I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And um, I made a tough move recently. I took on a new job recently. We're talking in the last year, relatives. I took on a whole new career, a very challenging career, very challenging. So my life changed. So again, same thing. I have to go to different meetings. I have to go to different support groups. I really have to reach out. And for me to leave my old community behind has been very difficult, very heartbreaking, um, more difficult than I thought. You know what I mean? I'm just going to be honest with you, relatives. It has been. Um, so I go to this meeting every Friday and Saturday night, mainly, definitely Saturday nights, and I'll probably go tonight, right? And there's this one guy. He's probably around 75. He's always wearing a cowboy hat, a big belt buckle. He's always dressed real nice. Um, and you know what? He gets out of his chair. I think I'm feeling a little bit emotional about it because a move like away from my family, away from my roots, has been very significant for me. Very difficult, but I wanted to take on this new challenge, relatives. And I'm grateful that I did, but I miss these old timers. They're still around. I make sure that I put myself wherever I go, wherever they're at, I make a beeline towards them because they got something that I want. So it's been difficult for me because I don't know this place where I'm at. I invested a lot of my efforts in my community. The land itself, I knew the land itself and the land knew me. But, anyways, the reason why I had to pause was because I'm feeling very emotional. Because every time I go to this meeting, his name's Philip. His name's Phil. He gets out of his chair and he's at least 75. I don't know how old he is, but you can tell he's got a lot of years behind him. He's lived many moons, many winters. He gets out of his chair and comes to me wherever I'm at. And that in itself means a lot because, anyways, and he comes up and he comes over and he gives me a hug and he welcomes me and he says, "It's good to see you." Every time. And that has meant a lot to me because it's been lonely. I got to admit, relatives, it's been lonely. Um, Living in a new community, it's been lonely. Yes, it's been exciting get to know the community, getting to know new people and stuff like that, getting to know a new land, a new career. Very exciting, you know, putting my heart into it, working hard, man. I work hard, you know what I mean? Um, but to feel lonely and then to have somebody go out of their way like that to teach me. And so that teaches me what to do. That again shows me the type of person that I want to be. Um, I had even gotten to the point where I was kind of like, man, what is, is there something wrong with me? How come this place doesn't feel as friendly? I mean, I wasn't so much pinning the blame. I knew from my sober life is that when you point the finger, there's always at least three fingers pointing back at you. So I had grown up through these elders. They'd always, modeled for that, not preach to me, not scold me because I've been abused all my life. I've been scolded all my life. They must have sensed that about me. So they were kind. They taught me about kindness. They taught me about including. They taught me about what's important. And you know what? I'm very grateful. And so now I know what to do. Just do what they're doing. Are they perfect? No. And that was another thing that I really liked was that they weren't perfect because I would put them on a pedestal and they are far from perfect. They have character defects just like I do. They mess up just like I do. They just some things I just can't explain. They just know. They know more than I do. And so today I have different heroes. I have different inspirations. Before the hero was the drug dealer who could be cool, get all the girls, have the nice car, and handle himself. Now I have different heroes. And I never know what age the hero is going to be. I never know. But I know for the most part, you can always look upon the elder. Always look upon the elder. And for that, I am very grateful. So with that, boy, I don't know if I've been emotional on a video for a long time, like that. So I'm grateful. And so with that, I'm going to say I better get going. I better, got a full day of work ahead of me. I didn't really sleep all too good, but I get excited about the weekend coming. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm going to say, I hope that I'm able to welcome you. I'm able to have the effect that these elders have effect. I can model what they do. I can model. I'm not going to have the lived experience. And hopefully, one day, creator willing, creation willing, that I'm going to be able to live long enough to have that experience and have that wisdom. In the meantime, I can model. I can look for role models, and I can model that. I can be that, and be a part of all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be. So with that, I could go on and on. There's more. There could be more talk too. That I could talk about the directions and things like that. But it's already been a while. I do have to get going. I do have to get ready to go to work. But what I want to do is I want to bring those teachings into the now, into the moment. And I think that I can be successful on whatever the goals are, whatever the vision has been given to me, influenced by these elders, created this environment that is within this body and in this mind and within this place, and go out and be sort of the vehicle for that. And I get excited about how life will unfold now that I have these new perspectives, these new ideas, these new ways of looking at life. And now the awesome thing is that I get excited about it, relatives, and now I get to see I have these new tools of living. And now I get so excited. Now what will happen next? Now that I can use these tools. They're not just, theory. It's just not theory. It's just not theoretical. It's no longer play pretend. It's real. And yes, it is a roller coaster, but it's not scary the way that it used to be. It's a different type of fear. It's more of a healthy fear, and it's kind of a fear of adventure. I'm not here because just for by accident. Is these attitudes and these outlooks have produced results in my life, just like the criminal thinking produced results in my life. But these different values and this different perspective. Am I perfect? Oh no, relatives. No, I make the mistakes on the daily. In fact, I insist on making mistakes. I insist on it. I insist on taking risk in this life. But there's a fundamental foundation that will always be there, that comes from the elders, that comes from long ago, and from that wisdom. And you can look at it like a responsibility, like an honor, like a humbling experience, but we can then sort of build upon that together. So, anyways, I better quit my preaching. I want to wish you a good day, and for that, I will connect with you very soon. Wakante ka ni ai washte mataki api.